Hi there, I'm Shannon Lee Wolf, and I've been asked to create a video about calls and call bearers and what the difference is between call and en-caul, which is been pretty confused in the medical community for quite a long time, and I'd like to shed some light on what the differences are and hopefully help people who have been born as call bearers or en-cauls, or new parents of babies born as such. And so what I'm going to do is read a few excerpts out of my book, Beyond the Veil, the Call Bearer's Handbook, right here. And it is available on Amazon worldwide. And okay, I'll get started. I'm a little camera shy, so this is not very easy for me. Okay. So, part one of Beyond the Veil is the basics. What is a call bearer? A call bearer is a person who is born with the call or of the call. The call is also known as the hood, the veil, the Venetian veil, the holy veil, or the veil of tears. And there's a reason for that. The call bearer is not born inside the unbroken sac of waters. Such is an en-caul birth, and I'll speak more later. Okay, so what is a caul? A caul is a piece of birth membrane that covers the infant's head and face at birth. The caul can appear in one of four ways. A portion of the amniotic sac, and that's the tissue that makes up the sac, which is called the sac of waters, that holds the baby while it's gestating inside the mother. And so a portion of the amniotic sac, just large enough to cover the head and face. This is the most common or well-known appearance of the caul. If you've seen pictures online, you can see that the baby's face is really tightly encased in the membrane. Okay, so that was the first sort of caul. The second is a larger portion of the amniotic sac, draping over the head and partly down the torso. And if you can picture it, rather than just clinging to the face and head, it would extend down to the chest area, and that would be called a shirt caul. Alright, and then there's a full body caul, encasing the infant's entire body in a tight wrap. So you picture a cocoon, basically. The child is born completely encased in a cocoon. Imagine how shocking that would look to the new mother, and very exciting for the practitioner who's assisting in the birth. Actually, all of these are quite astonishing to see, since they are so rare. And then there is a very, very different sort of caul. And this one is a separate head skin that is formed over the infant's head and skull. And there's actually loops that loop around the ears. It would cover the face and the back of the head and have loops looped around each ear so it's really tightly on there, very much like a helmet. And there are some who consider this the only authentic kind of call, because it is not part of the birth membranes, the normal birth membranes. It's an entirely separate. It's almost, it is thicker. It's thicker, like it's almost like a second head skin. And I read that it carries the DNA of the baby rather than the mother. And I don't know if this is true because I can't find any sources to confirm it. But that's actually something I'm working on. So that I'm looking forward to some new news. All right. It is possible for the callbearer to be born via cesarean section. But of course it would have to be that extremely rare second head skin sort of call, one with the loops behind the ears. And it is also possible for the call to roll off from the infant's head during the birthing process. If it's not on really in a way that would support it being pushed further against the child's skin, instead with the child's going down the birth canal, it can just get pushed off. And that can happen, and it does happen. I'm pretty sure it usually happens inside of families who do have calls in their families. People who are born with the call. And it does tend to be passed down. You can have the gifts and but no visible call on there. And to me, that would make you a callbearer. If you have all of the gifts and the call runs in your family, there's nothing to separate you from a callbearer. People who feel like because their call wasn't saved and they don't possess it, that creates bad luck and bad times for them, a harder life. And it could be true psychologically, I think, more than actually physically. It's very typical for a callbearer to have a very difficult life. Most, not all, but most callbearer children are rejected by their parents for being strange. Their parents don't know how to handle their odd behaviors, their strange interests, the things they talk about, seeing, the imaginary friends that are not from their imagination at all, but from different dimensions. There's ghosts, there's spirits, there's imprints, which are imprints of events that have occurred in the past, and they just keep playing over and over, almost like a hologram sort of thing, that a lot of callbearer children do see. And there are lower life form entities that can come in, and there are very frightening entities that can come in. And, not into the body, not talking about possession, just appearances. They're around us all the time. They're everywhere, and but most people, in my book, I call the majority of humanity normals. It's maybe it's not a complimentary word to use, but for a pallbearer who lives in a world where they feel alien, they don't feel like they belong. We are normally outcasts in society, especially as children. It's hard for a pallbearer child to relate to other normal children because they can't share their gifts, and if they do, they're ridiculed, bullied. Some are very severely beaten up and just have a really, really horrible time as children because they are so alone in the world. And it may be helpful to own your call as a talisman, a sense of security, something that you have to hold on to. It doesn't make you freakish, but rather closer to yourself for owning it, for it still being with you. So in that way, I'm sure it can be very helpful. Like I said, most people don't have their calls, and it's wonderful to hear when the parents have known to save the call and that the child can have it. It's just a nice thing, I think, but not necessary. And there have been questions about would I still have my gifts if I don't have my call? And yes, of course you would. Your gifts are going to be there with or without the call. The sense of security may not be as strong, especially if you're not brought up understanding who you are in this world that does not feel like home to you. Most pallbearers have this yearning to go home, and they know it's not this earth. And as I say in my book, Beyond the Veil, this book is written from the perspective of and for pallbearers who are good pallbearers. There are good pallbearers that have come here to bring the world to a better place through the love and understanding and compassion, but there is also an element of being a spiritual warrior against the dark. Most people understand the dichotomy that there are beings of light who are angels and are special spirit guides, and just the sense that you yourself are good and you want to heal people and you want to connect with people so badly and share that there is so much more to this world than meets the eye, to help people to wake up. And there are also dark pallbearers, I call them dark ones. The word evil is fairly good descriptive as well. These are pallbearers who are born expressly to stop the true pallbearer lightworkers. There are many people who call themselves lightworkers, and some of them are really good people and they do truly mean well and they are helping. And then there are those who really don't understand what they're doing. It's sort of they like the name lightworkers, so they kind of adopt it. And there are even evil pallbearers who will call themselves light workers, bearers of light. This is not the same sort of light, the God light, the light of creation, the light of compassion and love for humanity, and wanting humanity to heal and break away from the grasp of the evil that I'm going to say 99.9% of call bearers know that is controlling this earth. And they were born, as I was as well, with this sort of desperate feeling that we need to save the world before it's too late. And I hope that it's never too late. There are so few of us, and we have a lot of work to do, and that's basically the reason why I opened up my very first call site for pallbearers to gather together. It's called Pallbearers United, Lifting the Veil, and I developed it as a safe haven for good pallbearers to come and share without feeling like they're going to be ostracized or made fun of or criticized or called evil. There are many, many people on this earth, including the parents of pallbearers and family members of pallbearers, who are very frightened of their children's gifts, siblings' gifts, just family members' gifts of seeing, of the second sight or the sixth sense. And this makes for a very lonely childhood. Most pallbearer children don't really have friends and don't belong to like cliques, unless they find themselves connected with cliques that are connected with the occult in some way. And this can be very damaging to a pallbearer who is so sensitive. So that's basically sort of in a nutshell description of the pallbearer's life. Then we have en-caul babies. En-caul babies are born inside of the entire amniotic sac, which is a sac of waters, that comes out unbroken. In a regular birth, of course, the amniotic sac will break and the water will come out. And then the baby will come out, and the sac will come out with the afterbirth. In an en-caul birth, which is most common among premature babies, but not always. This is, again, an indicator, as the call is an indicator of a child's gifts. En-caul births are also an indicator of a special birth, however, a bit different in most cases. All of my research on en-caul has just been in speaking with en-caul adults who describe their lives as just really beautiful and lucky and so creative and sensitive, and they just feel very connected with the compassion, the light, the love, the God center, spirit, with the capital S, as some like to call it. And they have such loving presences that people are very drawn to them as opposed to repelled by them for being strange. And so they can infect people with joy, and that is very, very, very special and much needed in this world. Genuine, authentic compassion and love and light. I might make another video talking about light and light workers. But back to the en-cauls. There are, however, en-caul children born with caul bearer gifts. They can see spirits, and, ghosts and other strange entities, and people who talk to them that no one else can see. So I would personally consider them caul bearers as well. They're kindred spirits, definitely. So that is a basic rundown of the differences between caul bearers and en-caul people. I call them en-caul folks. And they can also be called bubble babies, which I think is really pretty. So, okay, I'm going to sign off, and thank you everybody for listening. Bye-bye.
So